Hello you guys, we're back at it again. Hi, welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Erin, and today I want to be talking about some books. If you're returning, thanks for coming back to the channel. We're up to it again with another video on some reading and books, which I do love to talk about. I could blabber on about books and reading all day long. So if you're interested to see some classic novels that I think are definitely worth the read, then definitely just keep on watching. So you guys, like I said, this video we're going to be talking about some classic reads, some classic novels that tend to, for me, I like reading classic books, which are what people would consider classic books or classic novels, but I have to say, you have to find the right ones, because let's be honest, some of them can be quite dated, can be a little boring, and you do have those like people that are like, oh, classic novels are the best, and if you're reading anything but classic novels, you're not reading real literature, and I disagree with that. I think that whatever you're reading is good. You don't have to be reading something that's considered, classic or, what am I trying to say? Classic or just really high regarded for it to be, enjoyment, or for you to be expanding yourself. I think any type of reading is great. But I will say there are some classic novels that I've read that I really enjoyed, whether that was from school or whether that was just on my own, which I've done as well. These are some books that I would just definitely recommend. So if you're interested in, some classic novels, but you don't know where to start, or you just want to read some more classic novels because you haven't, I feel like there's something on me, sorry, but you haven't, and you don't know where to get started, because I'm going to go into some different ones. I have some that are more for kids. I have some more that are very almost philosophical in a way, or metaphorical for other things, and these ones I just have enjoyed very, very much. So if you're interested in that, definitely keep watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it by the end, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I do talk about books, movies, and makeup here on my channel. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I've read quite a few classic novels or classic books that are considered classics, but I haven't read a lot as well. And of course, some of these were things that we read in school, and a lot of them were ones I just picked up on my own, which is even better because you can pick out the books that you love on your own by reading the synopsis or getting recommendations and finding those right classic novels for you. Now, classic novels are not going to be for everyone, but I think that there are going to be some that are just going to hit notes for people, and whether they're super old or even more, I guess classic novels kind of have a bit of an age to them, but even the ones that are more considered more modern but still classics, I think there's something for everyone. So let me go ahead and get into my first one on this list, and I got a whole bunch, but I'm only going to mention 10 here. 10 classic novels to check out for sure. And the first one is going to be Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This one I actually read. One of my sisters she used to read a lot. She doesn't much anymore. And then the other one is not a big reader at all, but they both recommended me this book, which to me let me know that it was good, because like I said, the one sister, she's not huge into reading, but she really did enjoy this one in school. I never read this one in school. I guess they decided not to do it my year when I was in that grade, and I'm older than her. So this one is about a group of kids that basically are stranded. I think it was like in an island or something, and they really do start to kind of go a little bit crazy in a way. It really shows you how without supervision, how these kids form this little society within themselves and sort of start doing some crazy things to each other. I won't get into too much detail, but definitely you should check it out. It's a really good one. It kind of shocked me in a little bit of a way because it is about kids, but there's some tough topics in there as well. Coming right after that one, Lord of the Flies, is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I've always loved this book. This is one of my top favorite books for sure, like of all time probably. I just really like the ideal of it, and I like how it's kind of metaphorical for other things that were happening at the time. It's about these animals on a farm, talking animals at that, and they start to form kind of like cliques, and then they start to figure out who's going to be the leader, and it's very much like dictatorship-ish. Is that a word? That is definitely not a word. Definitely like call back to some of the things that were happening at the time that George Orwell wrote it, and I really just love it. It's very unique because you're following animals on a farm and how they sort of, you know, choose their leaders and how people come into power. It's very good. It's a very, very good. If you've never read it, I definitely would recommend it. Right after Animal Farm is the book 1984. It is also about George Orwell, so he's on this list twice. For me, I just really enjoy his writings and his books. 1984 definitely has that kind of like utopian but dystopian type of vibe to it, and it's just one that I've always enjoyed. You definitely need to pick this one up because it, again, like I said, and I think George Orwell does this in most of his works, there's some sort of bigger theme and topic to be talked about. I think this is where they get the like Big Brother is looking at you type of, where that kind of like phrase Big Brother came from. And if I were to describe this one, it's basically like set in, like I said, in a dystopian future. At that time 1984 was like, you know, but we've already been past 1984, so but yeah, like the world has definitely changed a lot, and you know, Big Brother's watching you. That's kind of, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's basically set in 1984, which would have been the future for George Orwell, and the world has changed drastically. Society is completely different. People, like, it's like you don't trust anyone. Everywhere is different. I don't remember where it was set in, but you guys got the vibe of it. And I think this would be considered like a sci-fi, future sci-fi type of book, fantasy sci-fi type of book. Fahrenheit 451 is the next one by Ray Bradbury. I just love him as an author. I think his writing is just right up my alley. There's almost something kind of creepy about it, in a way. Some of his short stories, if you've never read them, they're so good. There's one that he wrote, I don't remember what it was called, but it was about these two kids, and they kept imagining things in this house, and eventually, I think somehow they ended up killing their parents or something. Very weird book, very creepy, very much up my alley. Fahrenheit 451 would be considered maybe like a sci-fi or fantasy or something. I don't know, dystopian. Definitely dystopian. That's what it would be considered of. Dystopian society type of book. Set in a time in the future where reading is illegal, reading is considered bad, and nobody wants anyone to have any knowledge of those higher powers. And there's actually firefighters in the books, but they don't stop fires, they actually start fires. So if there's any literature that they find or books, they set them on fire. And Fahrenheit 451 is supposed to be like the temperature in which books burn or something like that, or paper or something. But Ray Bradbury always comes up with some very cool concepts, and the main character starts to kind of feel disenchanted. Is that a word? I think that, is that a word? He basically starts to question his job, and he's a firefighter, and he starts to be interested in books. So it's a really, really good book. Definitely, if you've never read it, check it out. I really love it. And like I said, for me, Ray Bradbury definitely does hinge on some horror in some of his books and short stories. I think he's a great author overall, but that book in particular, I really, really love. I even have a book with the Fahrenheit 451 on it because it's just so good to me. Right after that one, I have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I almost didn't put this one on the list because I feel like most people have read this book because it's been assigned in schools, or you know, it was like assigned reading, and a lot of people will say that this is one of their favorite books. But I feel like that's just something people say. But for a long time, I really did think that this was my, a lot of people just say this is their favorite book, but for a long time this was my favorite book. Like, I would tell people this is my favorite book, and I still hold it in such a high regard. I wouldn't say it's my favorite book at the moment. I will leave in that position to It from Stephen King. That's one of my favorite books right at the moment, and probably some other ones I can't think of right now. But this one and another book, To Walk Two Moons, I forgot the title, but it was like a more child mid-grade type book. Those two were my favorite books for the longest, and I still love those two books. But To Kill a Mockingbird, I think most people know what this one is about. If you've never read it, definitely think about reading it because it is considered a classic for a reason. There's also a movie to it, and I do remember having this one assigned to me to read. I don't remember when. I think maybe 6th grade or something, or maybe I just read it because I remember some people asked me in 7th grade what my favorite book was, and I was saying To Kill a Mockingbird. But I read it fairly young, I think maybe 6th grade, and I really love this book. I think it's a great book, and there's a reason why it's assigned reading. It's just classic. Coming in at number 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay, and these are not like ranked in any particular order. I'm just put them down. The next one is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandra Dumas. I actually read this one on my own. It was not like a signed reading or anything. I just picked it up, and I had heard that it was a great one. It's a large one. This one's a big book, and I read this one in high school. I just picked it up one day and started reading it. Story. So if you like a revenge story, then this is definitely for you. I really love this one, and it almost feels like it's a big accomplishment once you finish reading it, because it's considered such a classic novel, and it's also so large, and there's a lot going on in the novel, but it's so good. It's such a like up and down thrill ride. Definitely really, really a great one. Coming right after that one is Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. This one I read actually in college, and it was a signed reading for me because I majored in Spanish. This was one of the books we had to read for one of my classes. It's also a large one. I actually still have it because I purchased it for the class. I didn't rent it or anything. I actually bought the book, and it is a large one. It is a large one, but it's so classic. It's so well known, and it's actually, I think, considered the first modern novel. It's by a Spanish author, like I said, Miguel de Cervantes, and it's following Don Quixote and his adventures, and he's like a very much unreliable narrator. He's got a very huge imagination, a little out there character, and I really love the like adventures he got into in the book. So it's following him on he kind of considers himself a knight when he's not really. It's a really good book. If you've never read it, definitely read it. I read it in Spanish and like Old Spanish as well, which was very difficult, but I would definitely recommend reading it translated, obviously, if you don't, read in Spanish, obviously. And there's probably abridged versions as well, because it's a very long one as well. But it's one that I still, to this day, like I still have the book. I could have gotten rid of it, but I just enjoyed it. And it was one of the readings in Spanish that I actually liked, because those were very hard readings when we had to do in Spanish, especially since it's not my native language. But this one I actually vibed with so much, and I think it was because of the characters. The characters are just funny. They really are. Right after that is going to be Journey to the Center of the Earth. This one is by, Jules Verne. Yeah, I think that's his name. I didn't write the author's name down. I have these written down, but Journey to the Center of the Earth is another one I just picked up to read, and I had already seen some other books by this author, and I believe I've read other books by him. I don't remember which ones, but this is one that stuck with me because I found the concepts in this book and what they found when they got to the center of the earth so fascinating. I just fell in love with this book so much. So it's about these guys that are literally going on a journey to the center of the earth, and they start to find all this weird stuff in the center of the earth. It's such an imaginative book, and I feel like Jules Verne always does really good with that. He did Around the World in 80 Days or something like that. That's the other one I read from him, and that one's also good. I think that's him, the same author. But I think Journey of the Center of the Earth is my favorite one from this author, because once they get down there, the way he describes what the center of the earth looks like, and even though we know pretty much what is at the center of the earth, a molten ball of hot lava, basically, melted rocks and whatnot, he described a whole world down there, and I just was in love with that. I love concepts of like finding another world or going to a different world from our world, and this was just like that wrapped up into a nice little neat little package. And it was also a pretty fun read for me, like a pretty easy solid read. Coming up after Journey to the Center of the Earth is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I would actually just put the whole Chronicles of Narnia in this category because this is probably one of my favorite series that I've ever read. And that one and Harry Potter for sure, for like fantasy world and novels, are two of my favorite series. I think Harry Potter will definitely be considered a classic now, but I really focused on things that were a bit more older, and Chronicles of Narnia fits into that category. And actually my favorite one is The Magician's Nephew. That's my favorite book from the series. And also Voyage of the Dawn Treader is another one. And then The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is another favorite. So those ones are great. They all have my favorite concept, going to another world, in them, which is why they're my favorite three in the books. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is definitely a great one, even though it's a mid-grade or a kid. I think that it's one that everybody can enjoy, and the story and the characters are just so good. The concepts are so good. And C.S. Lewis, I really enjoy him as an author. He's one that I hold in very high regard, from his nonfiction to his fiction works. I love him. I really do. And then this should be 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. Okay, here's my last one that I think you should definitely check out for a classic novel. And I don't even know if this one will be considered a novel. It's 1000 and One Nights. Is that what the title is called? Yeah, 1001 Nights. And this one is a compilation of different stories from different countries. I don't think there's any one true author, at least not one that we know today. And it's where we get the story of Aladdin and like Sinbad and those type of stories. But the overarching story is about this woman who's marrying this king or emperor or something like that. I forgot what the name of his title is called, but he's basically like equivalent to an emperor or a king. And he kills the women after one night of marrying them. And so this woman volunteers to be married to him, and she actually decides to tell him a story every night, but she doesn't finish the story until the next night in order to save her life. So he doesn't kill her each day because he wants to keep hearing all of the stories that she's telling. And eventually she tells all of these different stories. There's some really good ones in here, and for me the execution of the story overall together, even though it's a compilation of different things, and there might even be more than one writer for this, I just really enjoyed reading this one. And obviously you will have to get a translated version because this one is a foreign story originally, but I'm pretty sure been translated in almost every language because it's super popular and it's classic. So that's my last one on my list that I would recommend. I have a lot more written down here, so maybe I'll do a part 2 because there's some on here that I would really like to talk about as well and recommend. But yeah, let me know your favorite classic novel that you've read down below in the comment section. Or have you read any of these? Do you agree with me that they're really good, that people should check them out? Or do you completely disagree, and did you hate any of these novels? Let me know down in the comment section down below. I would really like to know. But yeah, that's all I'm going to be doing for this video today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will check you guys out in the next one very, very soon. Stay safe. Adios.